What happens when a beloved morning show host decides they have had enough of royal excuses and entitlement? Well, you are about to find out, because the confrontation between Mark Consuelos, Kelly Ripa, and Prince Harry on Live with Kelly and Mark became one of the most explosive television moments in recent memory. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about celebrities who overstep their boundaries on live television. The studio lights were bright, as usual that morning, casting their familiar warm glow across the colorful set of Live with Kelly and Mark. Kelly Ripa sat poised in her signature style, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a crisp white blazer that seemed to glow under the studio lights. Mark Consuelos, looking sharp in his navy blue suit, adjusted his tie one final time as the producers gave their final countdown. The energy in the studio felt different that day, charged with an undercurrent of tension that neither host could quite put their finger on. Prince Harry walked onto the set with his usual confident stride, wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive but somehow felt inappropriate for the casual morning show atmosphere. His smile was practiced, the kind of smile that celebrities perfect after thousands of public appearances. But there was something in his eyes that suggested he was not entirely comfortable being there. As he settled into the guest chair, he glanced around the studio with what could only be described as mild disdain. Kelly leaned forward with her trademark enthusiasm, her voice carrying that perfect morning television energy that had made her a household name for decades. Prince Harry, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We know you have been incredibly busy with your various projects and initiatives, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. Harry shifted in his chair, his posture stiffening slightly as he looked directly at Kelly. Well, to be perfectly honest, I am not entirely sure why I am here. My publicist insisted this would be good for my image, but frankly, I have more important things to be doing than sitting on some American morning show talking about trivial matters. The comment landed like a brick in the studio. Mark raised an eyebrow, his expression shifting from welcoming host to something considerably more guarded. Kelly maintained her professional smile, but anyone who knew her well could see the flash of irritation that crossed her features for just a split second. I see, Kelly said, her voice maintaining its professional tone but carrying just a hint of frost. Well, we certainly appreciate your honesty, and I am sure our viewers will find that refreshing. Perhaps you could tell us about your recent charitable work. Since you mentioned having more important things to do, Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms in a gesture that immediately made him appear defensive and closed off. Look, I have been doing charitable work my entire life. I was born into it, raised in it, and I continue to do it because it is expected of me. But what I really want to talk about is how the media, including shows like this one, continue to misrepresent me and my family. Mark leaned forward, his journalist instincts kicking in as he sensed the conversation taking an unexpected turn. That is interesting, Harry. Can you give us some specific examples of how you feel you have been misrepresented? Our viewers would love to understand your perspective. Where do I even begin? Harry said, his voice rising slightly as his composure started to crack. Every single thing I do gets twisted into some negative narrative. I try to protect my family, and I get called controlling. I speak out against injustice, and I get labeled as whining. I move to another country to escape the constant harassment, and suddenly I am abandoning my duties. It is exhausting, and frankly, I am tired of pretending that I have to be grateful for any media attention at all. Kelly set down her coffee mug with just a little more force than necessary, the ceramic making a sharp clink against the glass table. You know what, Harry? I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that we understand that being in the public eye comes with challenges. But you chose to do multiple tell-all interviews. You chose to write a book detailing private family conversations. And you chose to sign deals worth millions of dollars to share your story. You cannot have it both ways. The studio fell silent, except for the hum of the cameras and the distant sound of the crew moving around. Harry's face flushed red, and his hands gripped the arms of his chair so tightly that his knuckles turned white. You have absolutely no idea what you are talking about. You sit here in your comfortable little studio, making small talk and interviewing celebrities about their latest projects, and you think you understand what it is like to have your entire life dissected by strangers. Mark could feel the tension escalating, and tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "Harry, I think what Kelly is trying to say is that when you put yourself out there publicly, especially with very personal revelations, it naturally invites public discussion and sometimes criticism. That is just the reality of the media landscape today." "Do not patronize me," Harry snapped, his royal composure completely abandoned. I know exactly what she was trying to say, and what she was trying to say was completely out of line. I did not come here to be lectured by some morning show hosts about my life choices. I came here as a courtesy, and this is how I get treated. Kelly's professional mask finally slipped completely, and her voice took on the sharp edge that her longtime viewers had rarely heard. "A courtesy. You came here as a courtesy. Let me tell you something, Prince Harry. We have had presidents on this show, Academy Award winners, Nobel Prize recipients, and genuine heroes who have never spoken to us with the level of disrespect you have shown from the moment you sat down in that chair." "Oh, please," Harry said, rolling his eyes dramatically. "Do not compare me to your little parade of American celebrities and politicians. I am a member of the British royal family. I have dedicated my life to service, while you have spent yours, entertaining housewives and retirees." The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Mark's jaw tightened visibly, and he leaned forward in his chair, his voice dropping to a dangerously quiet tone. "I think you need to watch yourself there, Harry. You just insulted not only my wife, but also every single person who watches this show and supports the work we do here." Harry stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward from the force. "Your wife? Oh, that is rich. The mighty Mark Consuelos, defending his territory. How very American of you. I suppose this is the part where you are going to threaten me, or something equally melodramatic." Mark stood up slowly, his movement deliberate and controlled, but there was an unmistakable intensity in his eyes that made everyone in the studio hold their breath. "Threaten you, no, Harry? I do not need to threaten anyone, but I will tell you this. You can insult me all you want, but when you disrespect my wife and the millions of people who tune in to watch us every single day, that crosses a line that you do not get to cross." Harry laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound that echoed strangely in the suddenly quiet studio. "Oh, how noble of you, the great protector, standing up for his morning show kingdom. Do you have any idea who you are talking to? I have met with world leaders. I have dined with presidents. I have sat across from the most powerful people on the planet. And you think I am going to be intimidated by some soap opera actor who got lucky enough to marry into a television career?" Kelly rose from her chair as well, her petite frame somehow commanding the entire space as her voice cut through the tension like a knife. "That is enough. I have been doing this job for over 2 decades, and I have earned every single thing I have achieved through hard work, dedication, and treating people with respect, something you clearly know nothing about. You want to talk about world leaders and powerful people? Let me tell you something about real power, Harry. Real power is connecting with people, making them feel valued, and using your platform to lift others up instead of constantly tearing them down. You are lecturing me about power." Harry's voice was incredulous, his face contorting with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You make your living gossiping about celebrities and playing games with cooking segments. I was born into a 1,000-year-old institution that has shaped the course of human history. My bloodline has ruled over nations, while your greatest achievement is making small talk with movie stars hawking their latest films." Mark took a step closer to Harry, not in a threatening way, but in the way someone does when they want to make absolutely sure their words are heard and understood. "Your bloodline, your institution, your royal heritage. That is all you have, is it not? You have spent so much time talking about how terrible your life has been, how unfair everyone has been to you, how much you have suffered. But the truth is, without that title, without that bloodline you keep throwing around, what exactly have you accomplished on your own merit?" The question hit Harry like a physical blow. His mouth opened and closed several times as he struggled to formulate a response, his face cycling through several shades of red and purple. "How dare you question my accomplishments? I served in the military. I have raised millions for charity. I have used my platform to bring attention to important causes around the world. All of which you are able to do because of the very institution you spend so much time complaining about." Kelly jumped back in, her voice steady but relentless. The military welcomed you because of your status. The charities partnered with you because of your title, and the causes you champion get attention because of your royal connection. So please, do not stand there and pretend that you have somehow overcome some great disadvantage when you have spent your entire life benefiting from the ultimate privilege. Harry's hands were shaking now. Whether from anger or something else entirely, it was impossible to tell. You do not understand the pressure, the constant scrutiny, the complete lack of privacy. You cannot possibly comprehend what it is like to live under that kind of microscope. You are absolutely right, Mark said, his voice taking on a conversational tone that somehow made his words even more cutting. We cannot understand that kind of pressure. But you know what we can understand? We can understand what it is like to work for everything we have. We can understand what it is like to be grateful for opportunities instead of entitled to them. And we can definitely understand what it is like to show up somewhere and treat people with basic human decency. Basic human decency, Harry sputtered, his composure completely shattered now. You have been attacking me from the moment I mentioned that I had better things to do than sit here and play your little morning show games. You have questioned my accomplishments, dismissed my service, and insulted my character. And you want to lecture me about decency? Kelly moved around the coffee table, positioning herself directly in front of Harry, her voice dropping to a tone that was somehow both quiet and thunderous at the same time. We have been responding to your behavior, Harry. You walked into our studio, you sat in our guest chair, and from the very first question, you made it clear that you thought you were too good to be here, that we were beneath you, and that our viewers were not worth your time. Everything that has happened since then has been a direct result of the disrespect you showed us from minute one. I was being honest about my feelings about being here, Harry protested, but his voice lacked the conviction it had carried earlier. I thought Americans appreciated honesty and directness. I thought that was supposed to be part of your cultural identity. Mark shook his head, a look of genuine disappointment crossing his features. There is a difference between being honest and being disrespectful, Harry. You could have said you were nervous about being on television, or that you were not sure what to expect, or even that you preferred more serious interview formats. Instead, you chose to insult our show, our work, and by extension, everyone who supports what we do. That was not honesty. That was arrogance. Arrogance. Harry's voice cracked slightly on the word. I am not arrogant. I am tired. I am exhausted from having to pretend that every single thing I do is wonderful and perfect when the reality is that most of it feels meaningless. Do you have any idea what it is like to cut ribbons and shake hands and make small talk about nothing? When you know that there are real problems in the world that need real solutions? Actually, yes, we do know what that is like, Kelly said, her voice softening slightly but losing none of its firmness. We spend our days talking to people about their projects, their causes, their dreams, and their challenges. But the difference is, we find meaning in those conversations because we understand that connection matters, that making people feel heard and valued matters, and that sometimes the small talk and the ribbon cutting and the handshaking is exactly what someone needs to feel like they are not alone in the world. Harry stared at her for a long moment, his breathing heavy and labored. So what? I am supposed to pretend that every charity event and every public appearance and every interview is the most important thing in the world. I am supposed to smile and nod and act grateful for the privilege of being paraded around like some kind of performing monkey. No, Mark said firmly. You are supposed to recognize that you have been given opportunities that literally billions of people will never have. And instead of complaining about how hard it is to have those opportunities, maybe you should focus on using them to actually make a difference, instead of using them to make yourself the victim of every single story. The words hung in the air like a challenge that could not be ignored. Harry's face went through a series of expressions, from shock to anger to something that looked almost like recognition. But whatever moment of self-awareness might have been, Building was quickly crushed under the weight of his wounded pride. Make myself the victim? I am not making myself anything. I am the victim. I have been the victim my entire life, and the fact that you cannot see that just proves how completely out of touch you are with reality. Kelly let out a sound that was part laugh, part sigh, and entirely exasperated. Harry, listen to yourself. You are a grown man with more resources, connections, and opportunities than 99% of the people on this planet will ever see. And you are standing in our studio throwing a tantrum because to morning, show hosts had the audacity to suggest that maybe, just maybe, you should be grateful for what you have instead of bitter about what you do not have. I am not throwing a tantrum, Harry snapped, but even as he said it, his voice was rising to a near shout. I am trying to explain to you why your simplistic view of my situation is completely wrong. You think because I have money and a title, that somehow means I should just shut up and accept whatever treatment I receive. You think privilege means I do not get to have feelings or opinions or the right to defend myself when people attack me? Mark stepped closer again, his voice remaining calm but carrying an edge of steel that made everyone in the studio lean in to listen. Nobody is saying you do not get to have feelings, Harry. What we are saying is that your feelings do not give you the right to treat other people badly. Your pain, whatever it might be, does not justify walking into our workplace and insulting us, our work, and our audience. Your struggles, real or imagined, are not a free pass to be disrespectful to people who have done nothing to you except invite you onto their show. Done nothing to me? Harry's voice was incredulous, his hands gesturing wildly as he spoke. You have spent the last 20 minutes tearing me apart, questioning everything about my life, my choices, my character, and you think you have done nothing to me. This is exactly what I am talking about. This is exactly the kind of treatment I get everywhere I go. Kelly moved even closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But somehow that made her words even more powerful. Harry, we did not start this conversation by attacking you. We welcomed you. We thanked you for coming. We asked you polite questions about your charitable work, and you responded by telling us that you had better things to do than be here. By dismissing our show as trivial, and by making it clear that you thought you were too important to be talking to us. Everything that has happened since then has been you reaping what you sowed. That is not what happened, Harry protested. But his voice lacked conviction now, and for the first time since the conversation began, he seemed uncertain. I was just being honest about my feelings. I did not mean to insult anyone, but you did insult us, Mark said quietly. Whether you meant to or not, you did. And when we tried to address it professionally, you doubled down. When we tried to explain why your comments were hurtful, you escalated. When we tried to have a real conversation about your behavior, you started throwing around your royal status like it was some kind of shield that protected you from having to take responsibility for your actions. Harry looked around the studio, as if seeing it for the first time, taking in the cameras, the crew members who had stopped what they were doing to watch the unfolding drama. The producers who were frantically trying to figure out how to handle the situation. For a moment, something that might have been shame flickered across his features, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. Fine, he said, his voice sharp and brittle. You want to know what I really think? I think this whole thing is beneath me. I think your little morning show is a joke. I think your questions are vapid. And I think the fact that millions of people tune in to watch you interview celebrities about their latest projects while the world burns around us is a perfect example of everything that is wrong with modern society. The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze in place. Kelly and Mark exchanged a look that spoke volumes about